Well, my dear brothers and sisters, in the world today, sometimes it's easier just to reflect. Everybody say the word reflect. To reflect the culture of the world. And as Raul mentioned a while ago, the word world refers to all the system of values that are opposed to God's kingdom. In the world today, it is almost easier simply to reflect what is already the culture of the world. I remember I teach law right now. I'm a lawyer and I teach law. And many of my law students, when you ask them, why do you want to become a lawyer? They say, I want to serve my country. And I want to serve the government. But once they're into the government, after a few years, they lose their idealism completely. And when you ask them, oh, I thought you said you want to make a difference in the workplace. And he'd say, Brother Bobby, Attorney Bobby, it's very difficult. And so I decided if you can't beat them, join them. Sometimes the easier path, brothers and sisters, is to simply reflect the culture of the world. Everybody say good news. The good news is, we don't have to. We don't have to. As lingkod ng Panginoon, as Christians, we have the grace and the power and the ability to live our lives different from the way the world lives its life. We have the ability to come up with a culture that is distinct from the world. Because the world has its culture. But we in Lingkod, we in the Christian life, we also have our culture. And brothers and sisters, that is the challenge of this talk. How do we understand the culture of the world? The title of the presentation is, can everybody read it please? One to go. In the world, but not of it, our distinct way of life. Most of you here are millennials. Are you still aware that there was a war in Vietnam several decades ago? In the Vietnam War, the Americans went there to fight. And the Americans had more sophisticated weapons. Mas maganda yung weapons ng Americans against the Vietnamese. But the Vietnamese won over the Americans. Why? Because the Americans didn't know the terrain. They didn't know the territory. Once they were inside the Vietnam jungles, they didn't know how to navigate their way through it. And because of that, they were constantly ambushed. Many of them were taken prisoners, and eventually they had to withdraw from Vietnam. They didn't know the playing field. They didn't know the battleground. What's my point? Brothers and sisters in the Lord, if we want to win our war out there and not be defeated by the culture of the world, we need to know our playing field. We need to know the kind of world that we're living in. We need to know the kind of culture that we are up against. Remember, brothers and sisters, the world that we live in today is not our home court. Are you familiar with professional sports in the US? Sa NBA, for instance, if you're playing in the home court of your opponent, you're in hostile territory. Everybody say hostile territory. Because you're not only against 5 players, you're also against the entire crowd. And sometimes, they will even play around with the air conditioning of the Colosseum, the lighting of the Colosseum. In other words, you are up against a hostile territory because you're not in your home court. Sisters and brothers in the Lord, the world that we live in today is not our home court. This is the home court of the enemy. This is the home court of Satan, and he is the prince of this world. Unfortunately, this is the world that we live in. How I wish that this place, that we can just stay here, for the rest of our life. Kasi everybody's loving here, right? We love each other. Brother, tell your other brother there, I love you, bro. No, don't do that. Don't do that. No, we love each other, but out there, it's a hostile world, brothers and sisters. It's a hostile world. And the Lord reminds us, John 17:16 says, they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. You don't belong out there. Unfortunately, brothers and sisters, we have to live our lives in that kind of hostile world. And this talk is about understanding this world and how can we defend ourselves from this world. Let me share with you some principles to remember as we go out there. Number one, first principle. Can everybody read? One to go. Expect the values around us to be different from ours. The values that we hold dear in Lingkod is not held dearly by the world out there. When you go out into the world, brothers and sisters, the world that we live in has values that are different from our values. And do not be surprised if people will question you for your values. I remember one of my relatives actually asked me one time. I was already in a relationship with my girlfriend then, sister girlfriend at that time. We were both part of Lincoln, Quezon City, and one of my relatives asked me, she said, "Oh, so have you been sleeping together already?" And I said, No, we don't." "What? How many years have you been together?" I said, "Oh, we're going almost a year now." And he said, "What? You've been together for a year and you're not sleeping together?" It was as if I was abnormal. It was as if there was something wrong with me. And I had to tell her, no, we don't. We don't sleep together. What do you do? How do you date? My relative lives not in the Philippines. And I was saying, what? And I could not imagine what was going through her mind at that time. At that time, I was a bit surprised to hear that. But brothers and sisters, not anymore today. Because that kind of value is more the norm than the exception in the world today. How many of you here, don't raise your hands, just raise your eyebrows. How many of you here know of a friend who is in a relationship with another person and they sleep together even if they're not husband and wife yet? I'm sure you do, right? Because that's already the norm. And that's sad. Because the world today do not share our values. Second principle. Expect a need to explain why we do what we do to those who ask. Some people will not just criticize us, they will actually ask us why we do what we do. Why do you have prayer meetings on Friday nights? Friday nights is supposed to be a time to go out and be with your friends. Why do you have Lord's Day on Saturday? Why don't you not cheat or curse or crack green jokes? Some people will ask you. Some people will be curious. Make sure you're ready to give an explanation why we do what we do, brothers and sisters. In scriptures it says, 1 Peter 3:15, always be ready to give a logical defense to anyone who asks you to account for the hope that is in you, but do it courteously and respectfully. We must be men and women who are willing to give an explanation. Bakit natin ginagawa yung ginagawa natin? And that's why the plenary sessions are meant to shape your mind so you understand why we do what we do. The retreats, the Men of Fire, the Women Conference, they're meant to stir up something in your heart. But the plenary session are meant to shape your minds so that when people ask you why you do what you do, you have a good answer to them. Hindi yung, basta. Diba? Kadalasan, ba't yung basta? Ginagawa namin yan. Why? You have to have a good explanation. You have to be able to explain to them. Can you actually explain why we discern before we court somebody. I mean, the men, the brothers. We discern first, right? Before we court somebody. We pray about it. We call it state of life discernment. And I remember when I was new in community, there was this sister that I really liked. You know, when she smiles, you know, it's as if the world becomes more colorful. And during worship, I would have one of my eyes open, looking at her. Ang galing niya mag-worship. Ang ganda ng taas ng kamay niya. And sometimes I would even, you know, during Our Father, I would look for her so that we could have holding hands. But Our Father. Now, but brothers and sisters, at that time I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't ready to get into a relationship. So, and when I prayed to the Lord was clear to me that He wanted me to discern my state of life first. So even if I really liked the girl, I didn't make any moves. I didn't treat her differently from other sisters. And even if she has a big crush on the most handsome brother in that place, because the Lord was also talking to her and she hasn't had her discernment yet, she didn't want to entertain any suitors yet. We understood within Lingkod, but many of my friends and even families could not. And they have to ask. I remember one of my barkada asking me, Bob, gusto mo ba't hindi mo ligawan? And I had to painstakingly explain to him our way of life. Sabi ko, talk number 1. In the Christian sexuality course, of course, you have to be ready to give a bullet explanation to them. You cannot give them the whole CSC, right? And I have to be ready to explain that to them. And I did. And of course, it was hard for them to understand about seeking God's will, knowing what God wants for your life. But unless you understood it yourself, it's hard to explain to others. And that's why I encourage you, brothers and sisters, understand. Understand why we do what we do, because our way of life is so beautiful that you cannot just take it without even understanding it. You have to understand our way of life. You have to know why we do what we do. Ask your action group leader, bro, ba't ba natin ginagawa to? Sis, ba't ba natin ginagawa to? Ask your branch leader, why do we have to give financial contribution? Understanding our way of life makes you appreciate it more, but at the same time, it gives you weapon to explain to others why we do what we do. Okay? Next. Expect it to be challenging to live out our values in the environment we find ourselves in. Brothers, not only are the values of the world different from ours, the values of the world are hostile to ours. Hindi lang sila magkaiba yung values nila. Yung values pa nila is contradictory to our values. It's gonna be challenging. It's gonna be challenging, and you will be tested. You will be tested, brothers and sisters. May lumapit sa akin dati, Brother Bobby, alam mo, hindi na ako na ano ngayon, hindi na ako masyadong natitempt. I don't feel tempted anymore. Why, bro? Because I just give in. What? That's true, brothers and sisters. Sometimes, other brothers and sisters, they simply give in to the temptations of the world. We must not. We must fight it out. I remember a Lingkod brother, every time he travels to another place, away from his branch, he would look for the branch in that place. Why? Because he knows that if it's a company event, on a Friday night, it would be boys' night out for his office mates. And chances are, he would have to be dragged along. If not drugged. Okay? He would be brought there and they would do it. And so the first thing he does is the moment he arrives in a place, he calls up the branch leader of that place and says, bro, what time is your prayer meeting on Friday? Do you know why our prayer meetings are usually on a Friday night? It's part of our way of life. It's protection. Why? Because on Friday nights, that's when your office mates go out and paint the town red, correct? But on that night, we have a lingkod prayer meeting to be able to counter what they're doing, so that you have an excuse not to go with them because you're going to a prayer meeting. And don't be ashamed. When people ask you, where are you going? I'm going to a prayer meeting on a Friday night. Yung iba nahihiya pa eh. Saan ka pupunta? Prayer meeting. Ha? Saan? Prayer meeting? No. Be proud of it. Say, I'm going to a prayer meeting on a Friday night. In that way, they know that every Friday night, you're not going out with them. At a certain point, they will stop asking you to go out with them. Because they know that on a Friday night, you have a date with the Lord and the brothers and sisters. It will be a challenging world out there, brothers and sisters. But the good news is this. The more you imbibe the culture, the stronger you become in fighting the world. Yung mga early days, ang hirap. When I was new in the faith, I remember, 5 kami sa barkada namin. One night, my barkada called me and said, Brother Bobby, Bobby, anniversary ng barkada, dating gawi. Naku, patay. Pag dating gawi sa amin, brothers and sisters, pag anniversary ng barkada, pupunta kami sa mga malalaswang lugar, mga beer house. So sabi na, balita namin, nag-attend ka na raw ng retreat. Oo nga eh. Ay, matutuwa ka sa pupuntahan natin. Ang pangalan, Heaven's Place. Beer house po yan doon sa may Davao dati. Brothers and sisters from Davao, huwag niyong puntahan, ha? And I remember going outside the beer house. Nasa labas na kami ng beer house. I was there and they said, Bob, pasok na tayo. Sabi ko, dito na lang ako sa kotse. Pasok na tayo, dito na lang ako sa kotse. Pasok na tayo, dito na lang ako sa kotse. Bob, wala tayong kotse. Hindi. May kotse ko. May kotse kami. They went out, I closed the door. You know what they did? They asked a dancer to go out of the beer house to call me in. Ta-da! And they knocked. Tak, 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 tak. Pogi. Pogi. Sa loob-loob ko, wala nang ibang pogi dito. Yes. Binaba ko yung salam. Uy, pumasok ka na, nandun na yung mga barkada mo. Believe me, brothers and sisters, half of me wanted to go in. That was my life then. I was just a new Christian, living out the faith. But half of me says, no. You already have the Lord in your life. What are you doing there? What are you doing entertaining that girl? So I said to her, Miss, at that time I said, Lord, please give me the grace to say no. And I said to her, Miss, pasensya ka na. Hindi ako papasok. I closed the window. Naipit pa yung mukha. Lumanong kasi, ganyan. And then she entered the beer house. And all my friends came out, and they came out and said, Bob, ano ba nakain mo dyan? Ba't ganyan ka na ngayon? Nagbago ka na. And I remember going home at 2 in the morning, and I entered my room at 2 in the morning. I cried. I cried on my bed. Question, tears of sorrow or tears of joy? Sorrow din. I love my friends. Until today, I love my friends with all my heart. But brothers and sisters, 99.9% of those tears were tears of joy. Because I realized this is the way to real and ultimate joy. The peace that I felt that night could not be compared to anything that I experienced before. So for those who are new CLS graduates, you feel it's difficult, keep doing it. And you'll get addicted to the joy of saying no to sin and saying yes to God. That is the best addiction. The joy of knowing that you're pleasing the Lord with the decisions you make in your life. The world out there will try to tempt you, but because of our way of life and the support of brothers and sisters, you'll become stronger in fighting those temptations. Expect it to be challenging, but also expect to win by God's grace. Amen? Last principle, John 15:19 says, if you were of the world would love you as its own, but because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. So do not be surprised if the world does not agree with you, brothers and sisters. The moment the world agrees with you, you better ask yourself the question, am I still living a lingkod way of life or a Christian way of life? And last principle, expect our values to be appreciated by others when it is seen in our lives. You know, the beautiful thing, sisters and brothers, about our way of life is that when people see it, most of them, I'm not saying all, but most of them would appreciate our way of life. The Christian way of life, for instance, is good. Do you agree with me? The Christian way of life is good. People will resonate with that way of life. They will do bad, but when they see our way of life, they would say, that's a good one. I just don't know if I'm capable of living it out. Nakuha nyo? Nangyari na ba yan? I like what you're doing. I know that's the right thing to do, but I'm not ready for that. Many of our friends would say that. But they like it, they agree with it, but they're not ready for it. And that's fine. All I'm saying is, people appreciate when they see it in our lives. What's the crucial thing here? People must see it in your life. It's one thing to talk about our way of life. It's another thing that people see it in our way of life. They must see it. One of the best witnessing that you can do, simple lang, by praying for people. How many of you here were asked by your office mates to pray for them in your office? Usually tayo yung takbuhan no? They come to us, bro, padasal naman. Bakit? Kasi nagnakaw ako kanina, sana hindi ako mahuli. Ang ganyan klase. So, bro, padasal naman because I have family problems, I have family concerns. They would come to me and they would ask for prayers because they see me pray. Every morning, when I was still working in the government, I would close my room and I would pray. I would go into my cubicle. I didn't have a big room. Cubicle, and then I pray. And they see that. That's part of our way of life. And they like it. They like it. Another person even went as far as asking me to teach her how to pray. I said, madali lang yan. Bless us, O Lord. All I'm saying, brothers and sisters, is we need to understand that people like our life. We should not be ashamed of our way of life. When you have you attended a lingkod wedding where people actually worship the Lord just before the reception? In Manila, I've been to 2 weddings already of brother and sister, and they actually had a worship time before eating. And the guests there, even the family members of the bride and the groom would say, grabe kayo, no? Kahit wedding, nag-worship kayo. And they liked it. Many of them, they liked it. Some of them were turned off, but many of them, they liked it. In your birthdays, invite your non-Christian friends, and when they see you honor each other, they like it. Because in the world, it's more roasting than honoring, right? So when you're together in a secular prayer meeting, in fact, I remember one time a brother in his birthday decided to invite all his friends from grade school, high school, college, and working. And he said to me, Brother Bobby, can you honor me on my birthday? So, but please include the talk God's love in your honoring. So that without them knowing it, my friends would be going through the CLS. So I said, I met, at that time I wasn't available, so somebody else actually honored him in the form of a talk. And they liked it. The people there liked it. Naiyak pa nga yung isang guest listening to the honoring. All I'm saying, brothers and sisters, is people like our way of life. We should not be ashamed of it. Okay, last part. How do we create a distinct way of life? How do we create a distinct way of life? In the first place, what is a way of life? A way of life is a consistent pattern of living. Everybody say the word consistent. If you do it once, if you do it twice, if you do it 3 times, and then not do it anymore, that's not a way of life. A way of life is something that you do over and over and over again. Friday nights prayer meetings, once a week action groups, Saturday Lord's Day, prayer time every morning or every lunchtime or every evening. It's something that you do consistently, then it becomes a way of life. If you just do it once or twice or thrice, it is not a way of life yet. So the key word there is consistency. You want to fight the world? You want to live a holy life? Be consistent in our holy habits. You still remember our holy habits? As lingkod, we have holy habits as lingkod. Look at your commitment card in lingkod and just follow all those things consistently. You can live a life pleasing to the Lord. We have a distinct way of life, brothers and sisters. In much the same way that different groups of people have distinct way of life. When I was in college, I was an athlete. And athletes have a distinct way of life. We go home. Everybody goes home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We go home at 8 p.m. because we have a 3-hour practice. And during weekends, we cannot go out with our friends and get drunk because we have games on weekends. In other words, athletes have a distinct way of life. And there's nothing wrong with having a distinct way of life. Just make sure that your way of life is not only distinct, but also good. And this is a good, distinct way of life. So, how do we do that? How do we have a distinct way of life? Number one, have a clear pattern of teaching and formation to help members grow in their understanding of the faith, both preaching and teaching. We are blessed, brothers and sisters, because in Lingkod, we have a ton of teachings and preachings. Do not miss your CGS. Do not miss your CSS. Do not miss the Christian sexuality courses. Do not miss the Christian in the workplace. Do not miss NLTCs if you can. Why? Because these teachings will reinforce your life as a disciple of the Lord. And ang bonus na lang dito, brothers and sisters, is that, would you agree with me, that in Lingkod, we have good teachings and we have handsome and beautiful speakers. Correct? Yeah, si Raul lang daw yun, ano? But seriously, brothers and sisters, Raul mentioned a while ago that many people leave the Catholic Church today because they are not fed by the teachings. They do not feel that they are being fed by the teachings. Believe me, many people out there would want to have what you have, but they don't. You are exposed to so many teachings. I gave a course on marriage. Me and my wife, meron kaming tinatawag na Family Life and Marriage Enhancement Seminar or FLAMES. And we conduct that. And I'm so surprised because many of the couples there, ang sagot nila lagi sa amin, ang ganda naman ng teaching na yan. That's the first time I've heard that teaching. And I'm quick to tell them, alam nyo kung nag-join ka ng lingkod dati, nakuha mo na lahat yan. First year mo pa lang sa lingkod. Many of them, they're just learning it now. And many of them feel it's too late. Sabi nila, kung natutunan namin yan nung single kami, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation right now. And that's true. We are blessed with wonderful teachings, brothers and sisters. Do not waste these teachings. Many marriages fall apart because they did not hear what you heard. Some of you, many of you will get married one day. And you would look back and say, buti na lang natutunan ko sa lingkod yon. Many families are broken today because many people did not hear what you heard. Okay? Next, have a clear pattern of meeting regularly to worship and have an opportunity to build relationships with all our members. That's from Mega Manila. That's how they worship there. Ganun yung worship nila doon. But that's the Unity Games, brothers and sisters. You have to have regular meetings, an opportunity to be with each other. Many years ago, one of my challenges in life was that I couldn't, every end ng sentence ko may mura. Malakas po ako magmura noon. Yung every end, uy, kamusta ka na? PI ka talaga. Yung ganun, ano? That's how I talked before. But in my constant interaction with brothers and sisters, I found myself slowly changing. Nagbabago ako. In fact, a year after I was attending regular prayer meetings, I didn't notice it, but I already completely lost those words. Hindi ko na siya masabi. When I'm tempted to say it, I have the ability to pull back. Uy, kamusta ka na puto bumbong? Masarap yung puto bumbong. You pull back because now you're more conscious because every day you interact with people who do not curse. Eh, hindi nagmumura yung mga kasama mo. So, hindi. Sabi nga nila, you become who you're always with. Kung sinong lagi mong kasama, magiging ganun ka. Kung lagi mong kasama mga chismosa, magiging chismosa ka. Kung lalaki, chismoso. Kung lagi mong kasama manginginom, magiging manginginom ka. Pero pag ang kasama mo mga brothers and sisters who pray and meditate and serve and love the Lord, give it a few months, you become who you're always with. Sisters and brothers, be with people who love the Lord, and you will become one. And lastly, have a small group support system. We have a word for that. It's called action group. All of you have action groups, tama? How many of you here have complete attendance in your action group? Puro AGLs ang nagtaas ng kamay, ano? Puro AGLs. And believe me, there are days when you don't like going to an action group. Can I challenge you? That is where you get the support that you need to live out a life. If you're going through a sinful pattern in your life, and you feel, I don't want to go there because I'm sinful, the more you should attend your action group. Somebody would say, ay, babalik na lang ako sa lingkod pagka hindi na ako makasalanan. Question, do you bring the car, when you have a broken car, kung nasira yung kotse mo, do you bring it do you fix it first before you bring it to the car shop? No, you go bring it to the car shop to be fixed. What's my point? Brothers and sisters, the more you're struggling with sin in your life, the more you should focus, or rather the more you should attend your action group, attend your prayer meetings, especially the small group system. And the beautiful thing about in Lingkod is, we are being led, our small group is being led by somebody who is more mature in the faith. Your action group leader is more mature, presumably, in the faith than you. So you can ask questions to him or her, and he will guide you, and she will support you in your walk with the Lord. My first action group leader, one of my first leaders was Raul Roncal. And I've learned a lot from Raul, both good and bad. Good, mostly good. Mostly good. Our leaders, by the way, are not perfect. So never look at them and say, this is a perfect. No, nobody's a perfect leader. Raul, as good as he is as an action group leader, had his flaws. But the beautiful thing is, he helped me in my early walk with the Lord, making decisions in my life. If you can find an action group leader like that, who can support you every step of the way, it would be wonderful, brothers and sisters. Mature leaders will help you. Next is have a clear accountability system in your group. Have a clear accountability system in your group. What do we mean by this? Make sure that there is a system by which you can be accountable to the people in your group. For instance, you're struggling with a particular sin. Talk to your action group leader and tell your action group leader, bro, I really want to overcome this sin. Can I be accountable to you such that when I'm going through a temptation in my life, can I call you or text you or email you? Because I want to be accountable to you. You're familiar with the phrase living in the light, right? When you live in the light, you know the enemy is like bacteria. It thrives in darkness. But once you bring your temptation in the light, the enemy's power weakens. And therefore, if you have an accountability system in your group, such that you are able to open your life to your brothers and sisters and tell them, bro, when I'm doing something bad, I give you permission to correct me. That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. One of my favorite books, every time I read it, brings tears to my eyes. The title is Pugad Baboy. Alam niyo ba yung Pugad Baboy na libro? In that book, there's a character by the name of Senator Cabalfin. He had people around him. They're called unganos. Alam niyo yung unganos? Kasi pag may tinanong siya, pag may sinabi siya, ang sagot nilang lahat, ungano. Ibig sabihin, they all agree with him. Can I make a suggestion? If you're part of an action group, the best way for them to love you is not to agree with you all the time. When they see you do something bad, you must give them permission to correct you. When I was new in the faith, I remember my action group correcting me because I loved skipping my classes. I was in CYA at the time. I loved skipping my classes. One time, I was in the tambayan. Sabi ng leader ko, di ba may pasok ka ngayon, Bob? I said, oo, pero okay lang. Madali lang yung subject. You know what my leader said? Bob, if you don't go to class, no one here will speak with you. Either you go to your class or tatambay ka dito, but no one will speak with you. And that's when I realized, these people really love me. They love me and care for me enough that they're willing to tell me if I'm doing wrong. That is an accountability system. I also remember a brother, he was struggling with pornography. He told his leader, bro, when I'm tempted with pornography, can I text you? To invite you, and can I text you so that you can pray for me right then and there? So that's what he did. Every time my temptation, text the leader. The leader would pray for him. In that way, he protects himself because he is accountable to his leader. Are you following me, brothers and sisters? And lastly, a sharing of life pattern. The world out there loves to judge you. You'll be judged by your bosses. Performance appraisal ang tawag dyan, di ba? And sometimes if you don't do well at work, you get scolded. When you perform badly, you get demoted. Sometimes even in our families, we can be judged. But here in Lingkod, the beautiful thing is, you can be who you are and you'll be loved. Dangerous statement, but true. You will be accepted here, brothers and sisters. You will be loved. But, let me make it clear. If you're doing something bad with your life and it will destroy your life, expect us to help you overcome. Kung may anak kayo, Sunday, magkakaanak kayo, and your son says, Papa, do you really love me? Yes. Then you have to accept me for who I am. Yes, anak. Dad, I'm a drug addict. Just accept me for who I am. Will you? You won't. Precisely because you love him, that you will help your child overcome that addiction, right? The same thing here. We love you, but we will do everything we can to help you overcome whatever obstacle you have in your life that will prevent you from getting to heaven one day. You want to have an NLTC reunion in heaven, right? You don't want to miss your roommate. Pagdating nyo doon, uy, nasa langit na tayo, nasa na yung roommate natin, si ano? Hindi nakarating. Ka-branch mo yun, di ba? Ka-branch mo. Ka-action group mo pa nga, ba't hindi nakarating? Sisters and brothers, we ought to open our lives to each other, not only para may meron kang mahingahan. Minsan kasi gusto natin magsalita lang para may mahingahan. No. We open our life to each other with the goal of asking those brothers and sisters to help you live a holier life more and more each day. And that life pattern of sharing will enable you to get to heaven one day together forever. Diba? So those are the things that I want to share with you. Let me just end, brothers and sisters, with one story. What happens if you break away from our way of life? What happens if you break away from our way of life? What if one day you say, I'll skip mo na, lingkod this month, hindi mo na ako magpe-prayer meeting, hindi mo na ako mag-action group, I'll just lie low. You're free to do that. But I strongly advise you not to. Bakit? One last story. Are you familiar with geese? Ano ba yan sa Tagalog? Geese. Geese. Okay, tama. Okay. So geese, they fly in V formation going north to south. One day, as they were flying, there was this one goose. Okay? There was this one goose. Tago natin sa pangalang Tonton. Ayan, si Tonton nandito. There was this one goose flying, and as they were flying above a barnyard, there was a barnyard there. He saw the barnyard ducks. You know what barnyard ducks are? Barnyard ducks are the laziest ducks in the world. They walk around the whole day with a big tummy. That's all they do. They sit down, they talk, chess, ganyan. They station, yan. The whole day, that's all they do in the barnyard. They get fat doing nothing. Tonto na she was flying, said, kakaingit naman. The barnyard ducks, oh. Ako, pagod na pagod kami. North, south, north, south. What if I lie low for a while and go to the barnyard and join the barnyard ducks? So what did he do? He breaks formation. He breaks formation, went down, and started befriending the barnyard ducks. And said, pagbalik na lang nila, when they come back, going south, I'll join them again. After 1 month, he saw his friends flying back. He said, okay, I still having fun. The next time they come back, I'll fly again. So he started talking with the barnyard ducks, eating like them, living like them. Finally, the third time he saw his geese friends flying back to the north, he said, okay, it's time to fly back. As he was about to fly, he couldn't. Ang laki na ng tiyan niya. Hindi na, wala na yung muscles niya para lumipad. Sabi niya, next time na lang, I'll just exercise when they come back. Never did. So when they came back, never flew with them again. And he never flew with them again. Sisters and brothers, that goose was meant to fly, right? But because he broke formation, he was sentenced to a life on the ground. In the same way, a lingkod member is meant to fly. You are meant to soar. You are meant to go places and do great things. Mon said last night that we are meant to live great lives. Amen? But you can only do that if you fly with others. Don't break formation. You become a barnyard duck. Look at the person beside you. Mukhang barnyard duck ba? O mukhang goose? Sisters and brothers, how many of you here are on mountain climbing? Have you ever tried climbing a mountain by yourself? It's hard, right? You can, but it's hard. Nobody will encourage you. And when you get to the top and no one's there, anong tawag sa inyo? Hindi mountain climber. Alam niyo ano? Ermitanyo. Mag-isa lang kayo doon, wala kayong kasama. But what's my point? You want to reach the apex of Christian life, then my dear brothers and sisters, climb that mountain with others. Never break formation. We have a distinct way of life that is a platform for us to reach our ultimate goal, which is heaven. You're already here. Appreciate it, live it out to the fullest. Because one day, we want to have a reunion there, and we want to make sure all our roommates are there. God bless you. Thank you very much.